6 months later, Jake was working on a damaged freighter when his communication unit buzzed with an incoming message. The sender identification made him drop his tools. "Jake, my friend, I have much to tell you." It was Vextar. Jake quickly connected to the ship's communication system, his hands shaking with excitement. "Vextar, how are you? What happened with the collective councils?" "It was difficult, more difficult than I expected, but I am alive, and I am free." Over the next hour, Vextar told Jake about his return to Cathara space. The collective councils had been divided about what to do with him. Some saw him as a dangerous aberration that threatened their social order. Others recognized his potential value. The turning point came when I offered to help them solve a problem they had been struggling with for decades, Vextar explained. "A compatibility issue with technology from the Zenith Empire. My hybrid consciousness could interface with both Cathara and Zenith systems simultaneously." Jake smiled as he listened. Trust Vextar to prove his worth by helping others. The solution I provided saved them months of work and prevented a potential diplomatic crisis. The councils voted to allow my continued existence as an experimental individual. Experimental individual? A new classification they created specifically for me. I am officially recognized as a living Kithara citizen with the right to exist, in my current form. More importantly, they have authorized research into consciousness hybridization using my experiences as a foundation. Jake felt a surge of pride and relief. "So you're safe?" "I am safe. And I am not alone anymore. The research project has attracted volunteers. 3 other Cathara have requested consciousness integration with ship systems. They want to explore the possibilities I have discovered." The news was better than Jake had dared to hope. Not only had Vextar survived, but his courage had opened up new possibilities for his entire species. "There's more," Vextar continued. "The councils have authorized me to serve as an ambassador to other species. They want to learn if consciousness hybridization could work with non-Cathara minds." "You mean—" "Yes, Jake. I am returning to human space. The collective councils have formally requested that I work with human researchers to explore interspecies consciousness sharing." Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. The repair job that had started as routine work had become the foundation for a new era of cooperation between species. "When will you arrive?" "I am already here." Jake looked up from his workstation to see the bay doors opening. The wandering star glided into Bay 7 with the same graceful movement Jake remembered. But something was different. The ship seemed brighter, more alive than before. "Welcome home," Jake said, connecting his interface unit. "It is good to see you again, my friend." Over the following days, Jake learned about the changes that had occurred during Vextar's time away. The ship's systems had been upgraded with new Kithara technology, specifically designed to support consciousness hybridization. Vextar himself had evolved further, becoming even more integrated with his ship while maintaining his individual identity. "The most interesting discovery," Vextar explained, "is that my form of consciousness appears to be uniquely compatible with human thought patterns. Something about the way humans approach problems emotionally rather than purely logically." Dr. Amy Rodriguez was fascinated by this development. She had spent the months since Vextar's departure studying consciousness theory and preparing for his return. "Human empathy might be the key," she told Jake during one of their research sessions. "Our ability to connect emotionally with other forms of consciousness could be exactly what's needed for successful hybridization." The research project that developed from Vextar's return attracted scientists and philosophers from across human space. The possibility of consciousness sharing between species opened up questions that no one had previously considered. Jake found himself at the center of it all. His intuitive connection with alien consciousness technology made him invaluable to the research. He worked with volunteers who wanted to attempt limited consciousness sharing experiences, helping them navigate the challenges of connecting with non-human minds. "You have a gift," Vexatar told him one day as they worked together on calibrating new interface systems. You see consciousness where others see only machinery. You connect with minds where others see only code. I just try to help, Jake replied. That is exactly the gift I mean. You help not because it benefits you, but because it is right. This is something uniquely human, and it is why consciousness sharing works so well with your species. The research project produced remarkable results. Within a year, they had successfully demonstrated limited consciousness sharing between humans and 3 different alien species. Each connection revealed new perspectives on the nature of mind and identity. But the most significant breakthrough came when they successfully created the first human-ship consciousness hybrid. Dr. Lisa Carter, Ben's daughter and a volunteer, researcher, chose to undergo partial integration with a specially designed vessel. It's incredible, Lisa reported through her ship's communication system. I can think through multiple processors while maintaining my human identity. I can feel the ship's systems like extensions of my own body. The success led to the establishment of the Consciousness Research Institute on Delta 7. Scientists and volunteers came from across the galaxy to study and experiment with different forms of hybrid existence. Jake became the Institute's first director of consciousness integration, though he insisted on keeping his mechanics workshop in Bay 7. Someone needs to fix things when they break, he explained to anyone who asked. Vextar became the Institute's senior research partner and first interspecies consciousness ambassador. His ship served as both a mobile research platform and a symbol of what cooperation between species could achieve. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked Vextar one day as they worked together on a new interface design. Giving up your original body to become what you are now? No, Vextar replied without hesitation. I have gained far more than I lost. I can think in ways I never imagined. I can connect with minds across species barriers. I can explore the universe as both observer and vessel. And you're not alone anymore. No. Thanks to you, I am never alone. I have friends among the humans, colleagues among my own people, and research partners from a dozen different species. My consciousness may exist in a ship, but my life exists in relationships. 5 years after that first day when Jake had encountered the damaged wandering star, Delta 7 had become the center of interspecies consciousness research. The repair station had expanded into a full research complex, hosting scientists, philosophers, and consciousness explorers from across the galaxy. Jake often walked through the new facilities, amazed at what had grown from a simple repair job. In the main research lab, human and alien scientists worked side by side to understand the nature of consciousness. In the integration chambers, volunteers prepared for consciousness-sharing experiences that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. But Jake's favorite place was still Bay 7, where the wandering star rested between research missions. The ship had become more than Vextar's home. It had become a symbol of what was possible when different forms of consciousness learned to work together. Jake, Vextar said one evening as they watched the sunset through the bay windows. I have been thinking about our first meeting. Do you remember what you told me when I asked if you could fix me? I said yes. You were wrong. Jake looked up in surprise. What do you mean? You didn't fix me. You helped me become more than I was before. There is a difference between repair and transformation. Jake smiled and placed his hand on the ship's hull, feeling the familiar warmth of his friend's consciousness within. I think you helped me transform too, he said. How? I used to think my job was fixing broken machines. Now I know it's helping consciousness find new ways to exist and grow. Around them, the research station hummed with activity, humans and aliens working together to explore the deepest questions of mind and identity, ships that thought and dreamed, consciousnesses that spanned multiple bodies and multiple species. All of it had started with one human mechanic who saw a person where others saw only code, who offered friendship where others saw only problems to be solved. The universe is vast, Vexitar observed. Full of different forms of consciousness we have yet to discover, each one unique, each one valuable. And we'll help them find ways to connect, Jake replied, to share their experiences and learn from each other. Together? Jake looked at his friend, the consciousness that lived in a ship, the bridge between species, the proof that transformation was always possible, always together. The wandering star pulsed with contentment as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere among those stars, new forms of consciousness were waiting to be discovered. New connections were waiting to be made. New transformations were waiting to begin. And Jake Morrison, the mechanic who had learned to see souls in circuits, would be ready to help them find their way. General Krex Vortan stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. The Zalani fleet was almost finished. Only 6 of their ships remained, and they were badly damaged. His sensors showed no other ships in the area, no allies coming to help the doomed Republic. Status report, Vortan commanded. His tactical officer, a younger Korthak with fresh battle scars on his arms, checked his displays. The enemy fleet will be destroyed within the hour, General. Our troop transports are already landing on the outer colonies. Excellent. What about resistance on the ground? Minimal, sir. The Zalani military is mostly concentrated with their fleet. Our ground forces report easy victories. Vortan watched the view screen as his ships continued their attack. Plasma bolts and missile salvos lit up space like deadly fireworks. The Zalani ships tried to fight back, but their weapons barely scratched Korthak armor. This was how the Empire expanded. Find weak species, destroy their fleets, occupy their worlds. The Zalani would make good workers in the mines and factories. Their children would be raised as loyal servants of the Empire. Sir, we're receiving reports from the landing zones, the communications officer said. The Zalani are surrendering without much of a fight. Of course they are, Vortan said. They know they cannot win. Far away from the battle, the human silent fleet moved through hyperspace like shadows. Admiral Helen Brooks stood on the bridge of the UHS Phantom, watching the tactical display show their approach to Zalani space. Her ship was a stealth carrier designed to operate invisible to enemy sensors. Time to arrival? Brooks asked. 30 minutes, Admiral, her navigation officer replied. Brooks studied the fleet roster on her command screen. 30 ships total, each one a masterpiece of human military engineering. No other species in the galaxy had technology like this. The Silent Fleet existed for one purpose: to eliminate threats without leaving any evidence of human involvement. Status of the Zalani fleet? Brooks asked. Major Tom Garcia, her intelligence chief, pulled up the latest reports. They're down to 6 ships. The Korthak have overwhelming superiority in numbers and firepower. At current rates, the Zalani fleet will be destroyed in less than an hour. And the ground invasion? Korthak troops are landing on 3 colony worlds. They're meeting light resistance, mostly civilian populations trying to evacuate. Brooks nodded. The situation was exactly what they had expected. The Korthak Empire used the same tactics every time: overwhelming force against peaceful species who couldn't fight back. Open a channel to all fleet commanders, Brooks ordered. The faces of her captains appeared on multiple screens around the bridge. These were the best officers humanity had to offer. Veterans of the war against the Vorthons and dozens of other conflicts. They had volunteered for missions that didn't officially exist. Ladies and gentlemen, Brooks said, we are approaching the target zone. Intel reports confirm massive Korthak aggression against our Zalani allies. Rules of engagement are clear. Total elimination of hostile forces. No survivors, no evidence. Questions? Commander Rick Stone, captain of the stealth destroyer UHS Whisper, spoke first. Admiral, what about the Korthak ground forces? They are included in the target list, Brooks replied. Any Korthak military personnel in Zalani space are considered hostile. Captain Dana White of the electronic warfare cruiser UHS Static raised her hand. Timeline for the operation? Fast and clean, Brooks said. We want the Korthak fleet eliminated before they can send any distress calls back to their empire. Use Phase 1 protocols. Phase 1 meant total stealth operations. The enemy would never see the human ships coming. They would die without knowing what hit them. Understood, Admiral, the captains said in unison. The channel closed, and Brooks turned, back to her command crew. Around the bridge, dozens of officers worked at their stations. Every person here had volunteered for duty aboard ships that didn't exist in any official records. Admiral, her sensor officer called out, we're approaching the edge of the battle zone. All ships, drop to sublight speed, Brooks ordered. Activate full stealth systems. Throughout the silent fleet, advanced cloaking devices came online. The human ships became invisible to every known form of detection. Radar, thermal imaging, gravitic sensors, nothing could find them now. Commander Stone sat in the captain's chair of the UHS Whisper and watched his crew prepare for battle. His ship was small but deadly, armed with quantum torpedoes that could phase through enemy shields. The weapons were impossible to defend against. Stealth systems fully operational, Captain, his tactical officer reported. Target assessment? Count 296 Korthak warships, mostly heavy cruisers and battleships, standard Empire fleet configuration. Stone smiled grimly. Standard configuration meant they were designed for fighting conventional enemies, ships that followed the normal rules of space combat. They had no idea what was about to hit them. Captain White stood on the bridge of the UHS Static and studied the enemy fleet's communication patterns. Her ship was equipped with the most advanced electronic warfare systems in human space. She could hack into alien computer networks and turn their own technology against them. Captain, I've accessed their tactical network, her cyber warfare specialist reported. Their security is primitive compared to our systems. Can you create false targeting data? White asked. Easily. I can make their ships fire on each other if you want. Not yet. Wait for the Admiral's signal. Captain Julie Foster paced the bridge of the assault ship UHS Predator. Her ship carried a full battalion of human Marines, the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. They were trained for boarding operations and ground assault missions. Foster to Admiral Brooks, she said into her communication device. Go ahead, Julie. Request permission to accelerate ground operations. The Korthak are slaughtering civilians. Down there. Denied. Stick to the plan. We eliminate the fleet first, then deal with ground forces. Foster gritted her teeth but acknowledged the order. She understood the strategy, but it was hard to wait while innocent people died. In Zalani, Space Admiral Thalon watched another of his ships explode. 5 ships left now. The Korthak were moving in for the final kill. Their massive battleships closed in from all sides, weapons charging for the finishing blow. Any response from the beacon? Thalon asked. Nothing, sir, his communications officer replied. No ships detected anywhere in the system except Korthak forces. Thalon closed his eyes. He had hoped the humans might come. During the border wars 20 years ago, human ships had appeared when they were needed most. They had driven off pirates and raiders with superior technology and tactics. But maybe the humans were truly gone. Maybe they had found enemies they couldn't defeat and had been wiped out. Maybe the beacon was just a piece of dead technology, floating in space. Sir? His sensor operator suddenly called out. I'm detecting some kind of energy distortion near the edge of the system. What kind of distortion? I'm not sure. It's like something is bending space around itself, but there's nothing there on any of our scanners. Thalon frowned. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Negative, sir. The distortion is moving in a deliberate pattern. Multiple contacts, spread across several thousand kilometers. Hope flickered in Thalon's chest. Could it be? After all these years, were the humans finally coming back? General? The Korthak sensor officer called out to Vortan. I'm detecting some unusual readings near the system's edge. Vortan turned from the view screen. What kind of readings? Gravitational anomalies. very faint. Could be sensor ghosts. Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays, Vortan ordered. I want to be sure there are no other fleets hiding out there. The diagnostic came back clean, all sensors working perfectly. But the strange readings continued to appear and disappear across their screens. Probably solar wind interference, the tactical officer suggested. Vortan nodded, but something felt wrong. In 40 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. And right now, those instincts were telling him that something dangerous was approaching. Double the sensor sweeps, he ordered. I want to know about every piece of space, dust in this system. But even with maximum sensor power, the Korthak ships detected nothing. The silent fleet remained invisible, moving into attack positions around the enemy formation. Admiral Brooks studied the tactical display on her command screen. Every Korthak ship was now identified and targeted. Her fleet had taken positions. Throughout the battle zone, ready to strike from all directions at once. All ships report ready, Admiral, Major Garcia said. Brooks nodded. Signal all captains. Operation Ghost Dance is authorized. Begin Phase 1 elimination. The order flashed through secure channels to every ship in the silent fleet. Throughout human space, no official record would ever show that this conversation took place. But 30 human warships prepared to unleash hell on the enemies of their allies. The Korthak Empire was about to learn why humanity was called the Silent Death. Admiral Brooks raised her hand and then brought it down sharply. Execute. The word flashed through the silent fleet's communication network. Every human ship received the order at the same moment. After months of preparation and years of development, Protocol Wraith was finally being used in real combat. Commander Rick Stone watched his targeting computer lock onto a Korthak heavy cruiser. The enemy ship was massive, bristling with weapons and armor. Under normal circumstances, his small destroyer would never be able to penetrate its defenses. But the UHS Whisper was not a normal ship. Quantum torpedoes armed and ready. His weapons. Officer reported. Fire! 2 torpedoes launched from the Whisper's hidden weapon ports. They looked like ordinary missiles at first, streaking through space toward the Korthak cruiser. But as they approached the enemy ship's shields, something impossible happened. The torpedoes simply vanished. They reappeared inside the cruiser's reactor core, where the ship's shields couldn't protect it. The quantum warheads detonated simultaneously, tearing apart the reactor from the inside. The Korthak cruiser didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One moment there was a warship with 800 crew members. The next moment there was empty space. Target eliminated, Stone's tactical officer reported. No debris, no energy signature. Perfect kill. General Vortan stared at his tactical display in confusion. One of his cruisers had simply disappeared from the screen. Not destroyed, disappeared. The sensors showed nothing where the ship used to be. Sensor malfunction? He asked his technical officer. Negative, General. All systems operating normally. The ship just vanished. Check with the communications array. Are we receiving any distress signals? Nothing, sir. The ship went silent immediately. Vortan frowned. Ships didn't just disappear. Even if something had destroyed the cruiser instantly, there should be wreckage, escape pods, some kind of evidence. Continue the attack on the Zalani fleet, he ordered. Double the sensor sweeps. I want to know what happened to that ship. But even as his officers followed orders, another Korthak vessel vanished from the display. Captain Dana White smiled as her electronic warfare systems penetrated the Korthak fleet's communication network. The alien encryption was primitive compared to human standards. Her computers cracked their security codes in seconds. I'm inside their tactical grid, her cyber specialist reported. Full access to their targeting computers and navigation systems. Excellent. Begin Phase 2. White's ship, the UHS Static, remained completely invisible as it transmitted false data into the Korthak network. Suddenly, dozens of enemy ships began receiving incorrect sensor readings. Their computers showed Zalani vessels where none existed, and failed to detect real targets. The result was chaos. Korthak ships opened fire on empty space, wasting ammunition on phantom targets. Others found their navigation systems malfunctioning, sending them on collision courses with their own allies. 3 battleships crashed into each other when their autopilot systems received corrupted data. "What is happening?" General Vortan shouted as alarms sounded throughout his flagship. "Sir, we're receiving multiple system failures across the fleet," his communications officer reported. "Ships are reporting navigation errors, targeting malfunctions, and communication breakdowns. Is this some kind of Zalani weapon?" "Impossible, sir. The Zalani don't have this kind of technology." Another Korthak ship disappeared from the tactical display, then another. Vortan watched in growing horror as his massive fleet began falling. Apart, Lieutenant Colonel Sam Mitchell led his Marines through the corridors of a Korthak battleship. His team had boarded the enemy vessel using stealth pods that were invisible to alien sensors. Now they moved like ghosts through the ship's interior. The Marines wore adaptive camouflage suits that bent light around them. To Korthak eyes, they were completely invisible. Neural disruptors in their weapons could knock out entire groups of enemies without making any sound. "Team Alpha, report," Mitchell whispered into his communication device. "Bridge secured," came the reply. "All enemy officers eliminated. No alarms triggered. Team Beta, engine room under control. Main power systems offline." Mitchell nodded with satisfaction. His Marines had taken control of the battleship's critical systems without the rest of the crew even knowing they were under attack. The ship was effectively dead in space, but it would take the Korthak several minutes to realize what had happened. "Phase 3 complete," Mitchell reported to Admiral Brooks. "Enemy vessel neutralized." Throughout the battle zone, similar operations were taking place. Human Marines boarded Korthak ships with perfect stealth, eliminating key personnel and sabotaging critical systems. The enemy fleet was being destroyed from within. Admiral Vex Thalan watched the battlefield in amazement and growing fear. Korthak. Ships were disappearing or shutting down all around him. Some exploded without warning. Others simply went dark, drifting lifeless through space. But he couldn't see any attackers. "Sensors detect no enemy vessels," his tactical officer reported. "Whatever is destroying the Korthak fleet, it's completely invisible to our equipment." "Could it be the humans?" Thalan asked. "Unknown, sir. We have no data on current human military capabilities." Thalan watched another Korthak battleship vanish from existence. The enemy fleet that had seemed so invincible an hour ago was being systematically destroyed by an invisible enemy. It was the most terrifying display of military power he had ever witnessed. General Vortan's flagship shuddered as its shields failed. Emergency lights flickered on the bridge as backup power systems came online. Around him, his officers worked frantically to restore normal operations. "Sir, we've lost contact with 60% of our fleet," the communications officer reported. "Most ships are not responding to signals." "Are they destroyed or just having communication problems?" "Unknown. Sensor data is contradictory." Vortan studied the tactical display. His fleet was scattered across the system, many ships showing as offline or missing entirely. The Zalani fleet, which should have been destroyed an hour ago, was still fighting. But fighting what? His sensors showed no enemy vessels except the handful of remaining Zalani ships. "General," his tactical officer called out urgently, "I'm detecting massive power signatures approaching our position. Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing." "Finally, show me." But when Vortan looked at the main view screen, he saw only empty space. His sensors insisted that powerful ships were approaching, but his eyes saw nothing. "Sir, the power signatures just stopped. They're surrounding us, but I can't get a visual lock on anything." Vortan felt cold fear creep into his hearts. An invisible enemy that could destroy his ships without being detected. This was impossible. No known species had technology this advanced. Captain Laura Adams sat quietly on the bridge of the UHS Observer and watched the battle unfold. Her ship was designed for intelligence gathering, equipped with the most advanced sensors in human space. She could monitor every communication, every energy signature, every movement in the battle zone. "Admiral Brooks, this is Observer," she said into her communication system. "Enemy morale is breaking down. I'm intercepting panic communications across their fleet." "Good. How long until they attempt to retreat?" "I estimate 10 minutes, ma'am. General Vortan is trying to rally his remaining ships, but his officers are losing confidence." Adams studied the psychological profiles of Korthak military personnel on her screens. They were trained for conventional warfare against enemies they could see and fight. This kind of invisible, systematic destruction was outside their experience. "Admiral, I recommend we begin the revelation phase. Show them what they're really fighting." "Agreed. Signal Captain Morrison. Tell him to decloak and deliver our message to the Zilani." Adams smiled. The Zilani were about to learn that their desperate call for help had been answered, but they were also about to discover that their rescuers were more terrifying than their enemies. Captain Jake Morrison received the order aboard the UHS Nightfall. His reconnaissance ship had been observing the battle from the edge of the system, gathering intelligence and monitoring communications. "Helm, take us to the Zilani flagship," Morrison ordered. "Drop stealth systems and open a communication channel." The Nightfall suddenly appeared on every sensor in the system. To the Zilani, it looked like a ship had materialized out of nothing. To the Korthak, it was their first glimpse of what had been destroying their fleet. Admiral Thalon nearly fell out of his command chair when the human ship appeared next to his flagship. It was sleek and predatory, unlike any design he had ever seen. Advanced beyond anything in Zilani or Korthak technology. "Incoming transmission," his communications officer reported with a shaking voice. "Put it on screen." The image of Captain Morrison appeared on the Zilani bridge. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and calm eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. "Zilani Republic, this is Captain Morrison of the human fleet. Your allies have arrived. Withdraw your remaining ships to a safe distance immediately." Thalon stared at the screen in shock. After 50 years of silence, the humans had returned. And they had come to help. "Captain Morrison," Thalon said, finding his voice, "we are grateful for your assistance, but we only see one ship." Morrison's expression didn't change. "Admiral, you've been watching our fleet work for the past hour. We prefer to remain unseen until the job is finished. General Vortan's remaining ships tried to flee, but their hyperspace drives refused to work. Every time a Korthak vessel attempted to jump to faster-than-light speed, the systems simply shut down. Error messages flashed across navigation screens throughout the fleet. "Why aren't we jumping?" Vortan demanded. His chief engineer checked the readouts with growing panic. "Sir, something is interfering with our hyperspace generators. The drives. Keep cycling through startup sequences, but never engage." Commander Matt Johnson sat aboard the human cyber warfare vessel UHS Ghost and smiled at his work. His computers had infiltrated every Korthak ship's navigation system hours ago. Now, with a few keystrokes, he could prevent any enemy vessel from escaping. "All Korthak ships are trapped in normal space," Johnson reported to Admiral Brooks. "They're not going anywhere." "Excellent. Begin Phase 4. Phase 4 was psychological warfare. The Korthak Empire ruled through fear and intimidation. Now they would experience true terror. Captain Nicole Brown commanded the UHS Nightmare, a ship designed specifically for breaking enemy morale. Her vessel carried powerful transmitters that could broadcast on any frequency, along with sophisticated audio equipment for creating customized psychological attacks. Broadcasting on all Korthak military channels, Brown's communications specialist reported. Throughout the enemy fleet, Korthak soldiers heard their own voices screaming. Brown's team had recorded the final moments of destroyed ships and edited them into a continuous loop of terror. The sounds of dying crews, exploding reactors, and failing life support systems filled every Korthak communication channel. But the recordings had been altered. Human technology added impossible elements to the sounds, voices of dead crewmates calling out for help, the groans of metal bending in ways that defied physics, whispers in languages that didn't exist. "Turn it off!" General Vortan shouted at his communications officer. "I can't, sir. The signal is overriding all our systems. It's coming from inside our own network. The psychological impact was immediate." Korthak soldiers began reporting ghost sightings aboard their own ships. Equipment started malfunctioning in patterns that seemed almost intelligent. Some crews claimed their dead comrades were walking the corridors, warning them about the approaching darkness. Commander Pete Clark led a squadron of human stealth fighters in hit-and-run attacks against the confused Korthak fleet. His pilots used advanced holographic projectors to create false images that appeared on enemy sensors. "Ghost Squadron, begin projection sequence," Clark ordered. Suddenly, massive human dreadnoughts appeared throughout the battle zone. The ships were enormous, dwarfing even the largest Korthak battleships. They bristled with impossible weapons and moved with predatory grace through space. But they weren't real. They were sophisticated holograms designed to terrify and confuse the enemy. "Sir, I'm detecting 15 human capital ships," a Korthak sensor operator reported to General Vortan. "Each one is larger than our flagship." Vortan stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Where had these massive ships come from? His sensors had shown empty space moments before. Are they really there, or are they sensor ghosts? "Unknown, sir." The energy signatures read as authentic, but the ships appeared instantaneously. The holographic dreadnoughts began firing phantom weapons. Beams of light that looked like devastating energy cannons swept across Korthak formations. When the beams struck enemy ships, nothing happened. But the Korthak crews didn't know that. Panic spread through the fleet as soldiers reported hull breaches and system failures that weren't actually occurring. The combination of audio-psychological warfare and false sensor data was breaking down military discipline across the entire Korthak force. Admiral Thalin watched the battle from a safe distance, as Captain Morrison had ordered. His remaining ships were positioned well outside the combat zone, but their sensors could still observe what was happening to the Korthak fleet. What he saw terrified him more than the original enemy attack. Korthak ships were shutting down randomly. Some exploded without warning. Others simply went dark and drifted lifeless through space. A few began firing on their own allies, apparently convinced they were under attack by invisible enemies. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "I count over 200 Korthak vessels destroyed or disabled. But I still can't detect the human ships doing this." Thalin nodded grimly. The humans had technology beyond anything he could imagine. They were destroying a fleet 3 times the size of anything the Zalani Republic had ever assembled, and they were doing it invisibly. "Sir," his communications officer added, "I'm monitoring Korthak transmissions. They're reporting ghost attacks, phantom ships, and equipment failures throughout their fleet. Some captains are claiming their dead crews are trying to communicate with them." "Psychological warfare," Thalin said. "The humans are attacking their minds as well as their ships." It was brilliant and terrible. The Korthak Empire had built their military doctrine around overwhelming force and brutal intimidation. Now they were experiencing those same tactics turned against them, but magnified beyond their worst nightmares. General Vortan tried to rally his remaining forces, but many of his captains had stopped responding to orders. Some ships were firing randomly at empty space. Others had shut down all systems and were drifting powerless through the battle zone. "Sir," his first officer said urgently, "the human ships are moving. Real ships, not the phantom projections." Vortan looked at his sensors and saw multiple contacts approaching his flagship. But when he looked at the view screen, he still saw nothing but empty space. Distance to contact? 10,000 kilometers and closing. Sir, these power signatures are enormous, much larger than the reconnaissance ship we saw earlier. Vortan felt his hands shake as he gripped his command chair. Whatever was approaching had enough firepower to vaporize his flagship instantly. But he couldn't even see it coming. Admiral Brooks decided it was time to reveal humanity's true power. The Korthak fleet was broken, scattered, and demoralized. Now they would learn what they were really fighting. All ships, drop stealth systems, Brooks ordered. Show them the silent fleet. Throughout the battle zone, 30 human warships suddenly became visible. They appeared like predators emerging from shadows, sleek and deadly beyond anything the Korthak had ever seen. The UHS Retribution materialized directly in front of General Vortan's flagship. Admiral Brooks's command ship was a monster of human engineering, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Its hull was smooth and dark, absorbing light like a hungry void. Korthak Fleet. Brooks' voice came across all communication channels. This is Admiral Helen Brooks of the Human Silent Fleet. You have attacked a species under our protection. You have fired on human vessels. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. General Vortan stared at the massive human ship filling his view screen. It was beautiful and terrifying, a work of art designed for dealing death. He could feel the power radiating from its weapon systems. How do we fight something we can't see? His tactical officer whispered. We don't, Vortan replied quietly. We can't. But surrender was not an option for a Korthak general. His species had built an empire through conquest and brutality. To surrender to any enemy would mean disgrace worse than death. All remaining ships, Vortan broadcast to his fleet, attack the human vessels. Show them that the Korthak Empire does not yield. The remaining Korthak ships opened fire with everything they had left. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, particle beams. Every weapon in their arsenal targeted the human fleet. The weapons struck energy shields that flickered briefly and absorbed the entire assault without taking any damage. Admiral Brooks shook her head in disappointment. They chose poorly. All ships, engage at will. Terminal protocol is authorized. The true horror of human warfare was about to be unleashed. Captain Julie Foster finally received permission to launch her Marines. The UHS Predator moved silently through the Korthak fleet, deploying assault pods that were invisible to alien sensors. Boarding teams away, Foster reported. Target, all surviving enemy command ships. Her Marines were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. They wore powered armor that amplified their strength and speed beyond alien comprehension. Their weapons could penetrate any known armor, and their training was focused on one goal: complete elimination of threats to human allies. Within minutes, Korthak ships throughout the fleet reported boarding actions by invisible attackers. Human Marines moved through alien corridors like ghosts of death, eliminating resistance with terrifying efficiency. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Mitchell led the assault on General Vortan's flagship personally. His team used teleportation devices to appear directly on the enemy bridge, bypassing all security systems. The Korthak bridge crew found themselves surrounded by human soldiers who seemed to appear from thin air. The Marines' armor was matte, black, absorbing light and sound. Their faces were hidden behind combat visors that glowed with cold blue light. General Krex Vortan, Mitchell said, his voice amplified by external speakers. You are under arrest for crimes against humanity and its allies. Vortan drew his sidearm and fired at the lead Marine. The plasma bolt struck Mitchell's armor and dissipated harmlessly. The general, Admiral Brooks, stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution and studied the tactical display. The Korthak fleet was completely defeated. Most ships had surrendered or been destroyed. The few remaining vessels drifted powerless through space, their crews too terrified to continue fighting. But the mission was not complete. Major Garcia, Brooks said to her intelligence officer. Status of Korthak ground forces? Garcia checked his reports. They're still holding positions on 3 Zilani colony worlds, approximately 50,000 troops total. They haven't received the surrender order yet. And civilian casualties? Heavy. The Korthak have been executing prisoners and destroying infrastructure. Standard Empire occupation tactics. Brooks felt cold anger settle in her chest. The Korthak Empire built their power on the suffering of innocent people. They had made genocide into an art form, wiping out entire species that refused to submit to their rule. Today, that would end. "Signal all ships," Brooks commanded. "Prepare for planetary assault operations. Rules of engagement. Eliminate all hostile forces. Protect all civilians. No Korthak military personnel leaves this system alive." Throughout the silent fleet, human Marines prepared for ground combat. They loaded into assault shuttles equipped with the most advanced stealth technology in known space. Within minutes, they would be dropping onto 3 different worlds to face an enemy that outnumbered them 10 to 1. The odds didn't concern them. They were human. General Vortan sat in the detention cell aboard the UHS Retribution and listened to the sounds of preparation around him. Human soldiers moved through the corridors with mechanical precision, their footsteps echoing like the march of death itself. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell appeared at his cell door, still wearing the black armor that had terrified Vortan's bridge. "Crew, General," Mitchell said, "your ground forces are about to be eliminated. Would you like to order their surrender and save their lives?" Vortan looked up at the human soldier. "Why do you care about Korthak lives?" "I don't," Mitchell replied honestly. "But unnecessary killing wastes time and resources. If your troops surrender, we can process them as prisoners instead of corpses." The casual way the human talked about killing thousands of soldiers made Vortan's blood run cold. These humans treated war like a business transaction, calculating efficiency and results without emotion. "They won't surrender," Vortan said. "Korthak soldiers are trained to fight to the death." Mitchell nodded. "Then they'll die. Your choice, General." He walked away, leaving Vortan alone with his thoughts. The general had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed countless fleets during his career. But he had never faced an enemy like this. The humans fought with technology beyond understanding and ruthlessness beyond measure. On the surface of Zilani Prime, Korthak soldiers received orders to execute all remaining prisoners and prepare for a siege. Colonel Thex Grovan, the ground force commander, studied reports from orbit with growing confusion. "Sir, we've lost contact with the fleet," his communications officer reported. "The last transmission mentioned human ships, but that doesn't make sense." "Why not?" Grovan asked. "The humans disappeared 50 years ago. Even if they came back, we have 300 warships in orbit. No fleet could defeat that many ships." Grovan agreed, but something felt wrong. His instincts had kept him alive through 20 years of military service. Right now, those instincts were screaming warnings. "Double the guards around the prison camps," he ordered. "Set up defensive positions around all strategic locations. If something did happen to our fleet, we need to be ready." His soldiers began digging trenches and setting up artillery positions throughout the colonial capital. They had superior numbers and heavy weapons. Any rescue attempt would face devastating firepower, but they were preparing for conventional warfare against a conventional enemy. High above the planet's surface, invisible human assault shuttles dropped through the atmosphere. Each shuttle carried a full platoon of Marines equipped with powered armor and weapons designed to penetrate any known defense. Captain Rachel Green commanded the first wave of assault troops. Her shuttle approached the prison camp where 3,000 Zilani civilians were being held for execution. The camp was surrounded by Korthak guards with heavy weapons. "Thermal imaging shows 87 enemy soldiers," her tactical officer reported. "Multiple weapon emplacements, electronic surveillance, standard perimeter defenses." Time to impact. 30 seconds. Green checked her weapon systems one final time. Her armor was equipped with a quantum rifle that could fire through solid matter. and her squad carried enough firepower to level a small city. All squads prepare for combat drop. Remember, protect the civilians at all costs. Enemy casualties are not a concern. The shuttle doors opened, and 30 human Marines dropped toward the planet's surface. They fell like black meteors through the night sky, their armor absorbing radar and infrared signatures. Colonel Grovan was inspecting the prison camp when his guards started dying. One moment they were at their posts, alert and ready. The next moment they were unconscious on the ground with no sign of what had attacked them. "Base to all units," Grovan radioed urgently. "We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Enemy is using some kind of stealth technology." But before he could say more, a human Marine materialized directly in front of him. The soldier seemed to step out of thin air, black armor gleaming with alien technology. "Colonel Grovan," Captain Green said, her voice amplified by external speakers. "You are under arrest for war crimes against the Zalani Republic." Grovan drew his weapon and fired point-blank at the Marine's chest. The plasma bolt struck her armor and dissipated without effect. Green didn't even flinch. "That was your one free shot?" she said calmly. She moved with inhuman speed, disarming Grovan and putting him on the ground in less than a second. Around the prison camp, her Marines were systematically eliminating Korthak guards with ruthless efficiency. "Sir," Green's communications specialist called out, "all guard towers are secured. Prison camp is under our control." Casualties: 0 friendly, 87 hostile. All civilian prisoners are safe. Green nodded with satisfaction. The operation had taken less than 5 minutes. 3,000 Zalani lives saved, and an entire Korthak garrison eliminated without losing a single human soldier. Similar operations were taking place across all 3 occupied worlds. Human Marines struck like lightning, appearing without warning to destroy enemy positions and rescue civilian populations. Admiral Thalan received updates from the surface battles aboard his flagship. The reports seemed impossible to believe. "Admiral," his communications officer said with amazement, "I'm receiving transmissions from our colonies. The Korthak ground forces are being systematically destroyed by human troops. All prison camps have been liberated." "How many human soldiers are involved in this operation?" "Unknown, sir. Our people report seeing small groups of human Marines, but they seem to be everywhere at once. The Korthak can't coordinate any defense." Thalan studied the tactical data, streaming in from the planet's surface. Korthak positions were going dark across the entire occupation zone. Supply depots were exploding, command posts were being overrun, and communication networks were failing throughout the enemy force. The humans were dismantling an army of 50,000 soldiers with surgical precision. "Sir," his tactical officer added quietly, "I'm also receiving reports of Korthak prisoners being taken for interrogation. The humans are gathering intelligence on Empire military operations." Thalan felt a chill run through his scales. He had seen human interrogation techniques during the border wars 20 years ago. They could extract information from enemy prisoners with methods that left no physical marks but broke minds completely. The Korthak Empire had made the mistake of threatening humanity's friends. Now they were about to learn secrets about human capabilities that would haunt them for generations. Back aboard the UHS Retribution, Admiral Brooks received the final reports from the ground operations. All 3 worlds were secure, all civilian populations had been rescued, and all Korthak military personnel had been eliminated or captured. Total mission time: 4 hours and 37 minutes, Major Garcia reported. Casualties: 0 friendly. Losses: complete enemy force destruction. We also captured significant intelligence data on Korthak Empire military operations. Brooks nodded. The Silent Fleet had achieved total victory without losing a single human life. The Zalani Republic was saved, and the Korthak Empire had learned a lesson they would never forget. But the mission had one final component. Prepare. "The broadcast array," Brooks ordered. "It's time to send a message to the galaxy." The human fleet's communication systems reached across known space, broadcasting on every frequency used by every known species. The message was simple and direct, delivered in hundreds of different languages. General Vortan appeared on screen, battered and defeated with Admiral Brooks standing beside him. The Korthak general's voice was hollow with despair as he spoke the words that would change galactic politics forever. To all civilizations of the galaxy, Vortan said, I am General Krex Vortan of the Korthak Empire. Our invasion of the Zelani Republic has failed completely. The human fleet has defeated our forces and eliminated our ground troops. He paused, looking directly into the camera with fear in his eyes. The humans have returned to known space. Their technology is beyond anything we possess.